Hi students, welcome to Easy Elimu Learning Simplified. My name is Mbithe, and in this session we are going to learn about indirect speech. In the previous session we learned about direct speech. We learned how to punctuate sentences in the direct speech. So for this session you're going to learn about indirect speech, which punctuation marks to use, some changes that happen in the tense of the verbs when we convert a sentence from direct speech to indirect speech. So when you're reporting something that somebody said and you don't want to necessarily quote directly what they said, you paraphrase. That is what we call the indirect speech or reported speech. So there are two sentences there. I want you to plant trees now. Our principal told us. That sentence is in the direct speech. And then the second sentence, our principal told us that he wanted us to plant trees then. The second sentence is now in the indirect speech, which is what we are going to learn about. When you look at the words in bold in the second sentence, they have changed a bit, and we will get into all that. Why have they changed? When to change them? We will get into that. The first thing to note when using indirect speech, the only punctuation mark that we use is a full stop. The only punctuation mark used in the indirect speech is a full stop. For example, again, we are going to look at a sentence in the direct speech and indirect speech for comparison and for better understanding. I want you to plant trees now, our principal told us. That is in the direct speech. You can see there's a comma after the direct quotation, and then there's a full stop after the explanatory words. But when you look at that sentence now in the indirect speech, our principal told us that he wanted us to plant trees. Then the only punctuation mark there is a full stop. When you look at the second sentence, Maura asked, "Where is my book?" That is a question, and it is in the direct speech, and you can see the question mark. However, in the indirect speech, it is Maura asked where his book was. You won't put a question mark because then the sentence does not make grammatical sense. Remember, in the indirect speech, you are reporting what was said. You're not quoting directly. So you'll say, Maura asked where his book was. Secondly, another thing to note, when you now convert a sentence from direct speech to indirect speech, the verb that is in the present tense changes to past tense. Let's have a look at the same two sentences that we have been using. So sentence number one, I want you to plant trees now. Our principal told us. The verb in that sentence is want. Want is in the present tense. When you convert this sentence to indirect speech, our principal told us that he wanted us to plant trees then. Want now changes to past tense to become wanted, because if you said our principal told us that he want us to plant trees then, that is not grammatically correct. The second sentence, Maura asked, "Where is my book?" The verb in that sentence is. So see how the verb changes in the indirect speech. Maura asked where his book was. So is has changed to was, which is the past tense. So remember, the verb in the present tense changes to past tense when you change a sentence from direct speech to indirect speech. But If that verb is stating facts or something that is constant, something that is unchanging, it will not change. What do I mean? For example, we all know that the sun rises in the east, and that does not change, right? So if you say, the teacher said the sun rises in the east, rises is the verb, it is in the present tense, and that is a fact. The sun always rises in the east. When you're reporting, the teacher said that the sun rises in the east. So note that at this situation, it has not changed. The verb has not changed because this is a fact. It is known, right? I love English and Kiswahili, Pauline said. Pauline said that she loves English and Kiswahili. It is an unchanging fact or a constant. So be very careful about that. If it is a fact, something that is very well known as a fact, it does not, the verb does not change. It just remains in the present tense. Another change we should take note of is the word this changes to that. For example, I sang this song, Kamau said. When you convert this sentence to indirect speech, Kamau said that he had sung that song. So you won't say Kamau said that he had sung this song. This has changed to that. Another change to take note of is the word now. In the direct speech, it is now. When you convert to indirect speech, it changes to then. I want to sleep now, Juma said. When you convert this sentence to indirect speech, it becomes Juma said that he wanted to sleep then. So now has changed to then. I am going to the library now, Helen said. Helen said that she was going to the library then. Another change that we should be aware of is today changes to that day. For example, I saw an elephant today, Kibet said. So when you convert this sentence to the indirect speech, Kibet said that he had seen an elephant that day. So today changes to that day. And lastly, yesterday changes to the previous day or the day before. For example, did you wash the car yesterday? My sister asked me. When you convert this sentence to indirect speech, it becomes, my sister asked me if I had washed the car the previous day, or my sister asked me if I had washed the car the day before. So those are very important changes to take note of when converting sentences from direct speech to indirect speech. So we can have a look at two sentences for practice to see if we have understood what we have learned in this session. The dentist told me, brush your teeth 3 times a day. That sentence is in the direct speech. You can see it is well punctuated in the direct speech. So when we convert it to indirect speech, the dentist told me to brush my teeth 3 times a day. I feel excited, shouted Mwendwa. Mwendwa shouted that he felt excited. Take note of the verb feel has changed to felt. And so that's it for the indirect speech. I hope you have understood and you're now able to convert a sentence from direct speech to indirect speech. And for further practice, you can have a look at those sentences. They are all in the direct speech. Attempt to convert them or change them to indirect speech. Remember to take note of the verb that needs to change, the tense of the verb that needs to change, the punctuation also that you need to use, and some of the words that need to be changed. Thank you for tuning in.